Hi everyone, welcome today. We're going to do something a little different today. We're just going to do some textured tags, and for the beginners that are just starting out, this is a great way to learn how to add a little bit of texture to your cards without doing too much difficult work. So we're doing a little hop today, which means that we're joining in with a whole team of other ladies who are also doing a little video on something to do with texture. So our cards today, or tags, will be textured tags, and I'm just going to show you how to add a little bit of texture in a very simple way without having to go to too much trouble, especially for our beginners. And we want something that's fairly quick and easy to do. So the first thing, of course, is to make your cards. So you quickly decide what you want for a tag, and you can use textured paper to start with, which will help quite a bit. It'll add that sort of base to it, and then you just sort of layer up the different types of textures that you want to add. So then you would take it and put it through your Big Shot or embossing folder and choose a pattern to add some texture that way. That's a very simple way of adding a little bit of texture to your card without doing too much at all. So you can see that particular one is a basket weave, but we can go even a step further than that, and if you have some paper napkins handy, you can just tear off a piece of your paper napkin that you want to work with. And of course I've already taken the backs off these, and if you don't know how to do that, the easiest way is to get a little piece of sticky tape and just stick it to your back layer and pull it up, and that will bring off your layers until you get to the bottom layer that has your colour on it, because you only really need the top layer. So to put that on, you can use many methods. You can use just watered down PVA glue, or you can use, what I'm using is a little bit of Deco Magic, a little birdie, decoupage sort of glue, but any of that sort of glue or medium will help stick it. And I just put a little layer on first just to help to hold it down. You don't need a lot, you only need really a small amount, and you just quickly put a layer on just so that your napkin will hang on to it. And you can just add a little bit of water to your glue and spread that. It'll give you the same effect. And then I just take my napkin and just stick it down, and I do another layer over the top. So just mixed in with a little bit of water to make it a lighter coat, because you don't really need a thick coat for this light tissue. And that also helps bring up your texture from underneath. You can probably see that that's coming through. That basket weave kind of shape is appearing through now. So you just go all over your tag lightly with that. And then you just leave it to dry in a nice sunny window spot, or you can dry it with your heat gun if you have a heat gun or a dryer. But just remember to be gentle with it, because the tissue is quite delicate and it will tear easy. So I just leave it like that and sit that somewhere to dry, or as I said, dry it off quickly. Because we don't quite have that much time today, I've done some ahead of time. So I'll put that one aside to dry, and I'll grab a couple that I've done earlier. So here's a basket weave one that I have done earlier, and I've done another tag that has a sort of a crisscross. I don't know if you can see that really well, a crisscross to it, but you can see how it's got a little bit more shine, and that's just given your base card a little bit more texture, as well as your napkin has given you a little bit of pattern and colour. So for a background, that's a really great place to start. I mean, you can leave them like this if you want to, and just add a bit of ribbon on the top, and you know, they're quite okay as they are. You could add a little bit of some tea-dyed paper on the back if you wanted to write on them or something like that. But I'm going to add just another little layer to lift that up a bit more. So another way of adding texture to your tag is to add fabric. So what I've got here is a couple of different little pieces of fabric, and these are just scraps. You can just use little scraps of fabric. That one's a little bit of calico that was left over, and that's a bit of cheesecloth. So I'm just going to layer that on there, and if I can just grab my glue, I will just glue that down, and that will give you another layer of texture on the bottom there. So you'll find that the more layers you add up, the more texture that you will give your tag. But you also have to consider how thick you want it. You may not want to add a lot of you know, thickness, because if you're putting it in a journal it might get too heavy and you might not have the room or space for it. But usually if you are just going to add, say, 1 or 2, you can certainly manage this much. Now I've cut out some little bees and dragonflies and things to add another layer, so I'm just going to quickly glue him on so that you can see quickly how to give a tag a bit of life. If it's looking a bit dull and you want to just give it a bit of life and some texture, you can add another layer like that. And then by the time you find a little piece of something to tie in the top, you've got quite an interesting type of tag that will give you just that little bit more interest, so that you can just add a little bit more life to your, there you go. So that looks quite good, considering what we started with, which was just a very plain tag like this, and we've actually ended up with this just by adding a few layers, and you've got that nice textured background that adds a little bit of depth. And a lot of these new embossing folders you get are quite textured now too, especially you can see from that one it's quite deep, so they will give you a lot of texture to start with. It's just a matter of knowing sort of how to add just that little something. So let's see, to this one we can just add, say, a little bit of the cheesecloth and a dragonfly, and keeping it simple is probably the best idea, not to really try to go over the top to start with until you get the hang of it. So I'll just put a little bit of glue on my little dragonfly, and then he's ready to go. So I'll push him down there too, and there you've got another little tag with just a bit of texture to it. So that's just our quick little session today on how to add just a tiny bit of texture to your cards and tags and things. And maybe if you wanted to even add one more step to the dragonfly, you could just add a little bit of tape to one corner, which might give you even just a little bit more depth in behind your dragonfly. Whoops. So there you go. You might want to just finish him off with just a little bit of something interesting to give a little bit of interest to the eye perhaps. But it's entirely up to your own style of creativity and what you like. So that's today's fast, speedy lesson. Another idea would be to just take your embossing folders and run your tags through, and then just highlight those areas that you want to stand out to give you a little bit more texture. So that's a very simple way too of adding a little bit of texture to your cards. If you're just starting out and you haven't got any idea of sort of what to do or where to go, sometimes just something small and simple like that is just enough to give it a lift and add a bit of life to your page. So follow on, I will add some links to the end so that you can maybe find the other ladies in the group and have a look at what they're doing with texture this time around. Thank you very much. Bye. See you next time.